Being the town council meeting. We'll now convene the Minturn Town Council meeting of December 6, 2023. Roll call, please.
Lynn's here.
Here.
Brian here. Gusty here.
Here. Terry here.
And Earl is here and Tom is on Zoom. Is he?
I'm here.
Okay. I heard it. Yeah, okay. All right, next, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull any item?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Terry, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. Next, we have approval of the regular agenda. Any amendments? Okay. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Gusty, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Does anybody have a declaration of conflict of interest for anything on the agenda tonight?
No.
No.
Ready? Next is public comment. This is when there's anyone out there that would like to address the board about any issue that is not on the agenda. Then now is the time to do it. Hey, do you have anybody online?
No, there's nobody with their hand up.
Okay. Alrighty. Next, we have council comments and committee reports. Lynn, do you have anything tonight?
I don't have anything to report.
Me neither. Same here.
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure everyone's aware that we have in April. And if anyone has an interest in that, you can put in a letter of interest and pick up a packet in the offices in January only. And then as long as there's a certain procedure you have to go through. But we'll have 3 council people in the mayor's position. So January is the month to do that in case, and hopefully someone out there will be interested.
This is fun.
She's right. It's just hilarious. It's a hoot, man. Okay, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My manager's report is in the packet for everyone. Anyone has any questions on the update that was provided in the packet, I will just highlight. We're going a little more education and information around emergency management and evacuation planning. So Birch Barron will us at the next council meeting adopt the Eagle County Emergency Operations Management Plan, which also includes the evacuation plan. And then in January, we will have Chief Carl Bauer and Hugh Fairfield Smith to talk wildfire preparedness. With that, I just want to let you know that today, Senator Bennett's office sent out a notice that the Office of the Inspector General conducted an audit of the Mountain Town United States Postal Service. As some folks might suspect, the audit did not come back with glowing reviews. And I will just read, it says, from the Office of the Inspector General, it reads, what we found, it says, customers in Colorado Mountain Towns experienced lower on-time service performance, especially for packages, compared to the rest of the state and nation overall. On-time mail delivery was up to 5 percentage points lower, and packages were up 2 percentage points lower than the nationwide average. The biggest challenge was the facility's ability to hire and retain personnel. We also found deficiencies with the handling of mail and packages, transportation schedules, and facility constraints. These issues were due, in part, to inadequate management oversight and a lack of communication that resulted in significant delays, incorrect package returns, and misinformation for customers. And then they went on to, it says, we made 8 recommendations to address the overarching causes of poor service, performance, and customer service, and 2 recommendations were related to staffing and retention in the Colorado mountain towns. I don't see, oh, there's a link to the full PDF where you can find out what those recommendations are. So we are all hopeful that those recommendations are fulfilled and that we might have better mail service delivery before Christmas. Is that optimistic?
You're an optimist. I just want to say Diane and our crew here have been doing, I think they've been doing a stand-up job. I really do.
I
And-
would second that. Like, I'm hearing what's going on in Vale right now.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm like, shh, don't tell anybody
Yeah.
to come over here. We've got it good. That's me.
Email that I received today. So just wanted to add that in for everybody and we can get y'all the link to the full list of records.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have a special presentation from the Eagle River Water and Sanitation District to update us on Bulls Lake. We have Jason Colts. And who's the other gentleman? I'm sorry.
And Justin Hildreth is
Justin
with
Hildreth.
us this
Okay.
evening.
Are we need to turn? So I'm gonna actually just turn this over to Justin here in a second. And he'll run through the presentation. We hired Justin, what about May?
yeah.
I think so. And he was formerly town engineer for town of Avon and came over as a water resources engineer for the district. So been a huge help in moving this forward. We're still in our preliminary design work. And so what we're trying to do with the preliminary design is identify the major reservoir components, how we're going to handle certain aspects of it, and what we're going to take through for permitting in terms of the impacts of the reservoir. So like where the diversions are going to come from, how we're going to build the reservoir, some of those things, and then we'll go into more detailed design. But the federal permitting process will take at least a couple of years. And so Justin will give you a brief update on where we're at. We've done some field work last fall and then throughout this summer. And our consultants are working on wrapping up preliminary design, which we should have in March, hopefully of 2024. And so we'll just give you a little update on the progress. We said we try to keep you guys abreast of what's going on as our plans are continuing to be formulated. And so this will be the first in a series of those updates.
Thank you, Jason.
Oh, yeah, I'm Justin Hildreth, a water resources engineer. So as Jason said, we'll present an update of where we are with the Bulls Lake project, the schedule, and our next steps. It's a multi-year effort to get this project completed. I'm sure everybody can hear me. So I think you're all pretty familiar with the background of the reservoir, where it is, why we selected the site. You know, the dam was breached in 1996, but it was for this, for our future Bulls Lake project. So as a background, the need of the reservoir is really to augment our requirements to our depletions in the reservoir to meet our stream. We completed we completed a feasibility study back in 2000. And we purchased the site in 2022. And as you're well aware, we have an IGA to provide 20 acre feet of storage for you with the option to purchase more. So where we are, as Jason mentioned, we completed the feasibility study in 2021, and we're working on the preliminary design right now. The preliminary design has many components to really get in the details of the project, the technical studies, the soil underneath, the grading plans, the groundwater modeling, water diversion analysis and how we're going to fill the reservoir, the headgate assessment, and also the complex permitting required for a reservoir state with the federal government. So ultimately, our goal is to develop the most cost-effective design and minimize the excavation And our liner is probably going to incorporate a combination of clay and synthetic material. We're still that'll probably be finalized in the next stage of the design. So where we are with the liner, that's kind of a big component. This reservoir is sitting on a fairly porous soil, so it needs to be lined to run leakage into the subsurface. So we're looking at either importing clay material to line it and also to construct the dams, the 2 dams that are required. We have a site in Wolcott that can contribute most of it. And then there's also additional clay material adjacent to the site that's on BLM property that we'd have to get a mining permit and go through all that process with the BLM to get that material. That would have to be trucked in. We're also going to look at the synthetic material. It's more expensive, but it also leaks less water into the subgrade. So we get a little more efficiency and a little more yield out of the reservoir. So we got to balance the cost with versus the loss of water through the structure. So with the preliminary design, so we're working on the preliminary design will be done this spring, and then we'll start with the design development. As we work through the design development, and for a layperson, I would call it between the 30% to 65% design. We're going to start the permitting and concurrence because we expect that to be more of a collaborative approach with the federal government and also through our 1041 process with the county and with the town of Minturn. And then once we're through that process, we'll do the construction documents probably around 2026, and then optimistically start construction in 2027. I want to be pretty realistic. This is an optimistic plan. There can be a lot of hiccups whenever you're dealing with federal permitting. There's a lot of unknowns. There could be unforeseen delays that we just aren't aware of at this time. So 2027 would be the beginning, when we most optimistically could start, but it easily could be pushed out a year or 2. But we expect a 3-year construction period. So that would be hopefully done in 2029, but it could be 2030. So the dam design, we have numerous constraints. The US 24 right away. There is a large rock upcropping on the north side and a smaller one on the south side. That is why we have the natural basin, but also that limits on the footprint of the reservoir site. And also we have shallow groundwater in that area, which obviously we don't want to have groundwater seeping into the reservoir, and that would complex our storage. And also that would damage the liner because it would kind of bubble it up and push it up. So we're working on slopes of the 2 dams, 3 to 1, which is 3 horizontal, 1 vertical. The top of the dam right now is about 81,053 elevation. The water surface would be 3 feet below that. For reference, the old dam that was breached in 1906, the top of that is at. So we expect to be going 25 feet higher than what that old dam structure was. I think that's more of a natural alluvial that Ben Bull used to create the reservoir back in the day. So having a dam of this height facing US 24, it'll be roughly 56 feet tall. And the reservoir will be about 53 feet deep of water at that location. And then we'll have what's called the Saddle Dam or the Southwest Dam, which is kind of near Tigawon Road. The dam would not have to be nearly as high. We expect it to be about 23 feet. And at that location, the reservoir would be about 48 feet. And that's when it's fully full. One of the things we're working on is how we're going to fill it. We have 2 main sources of water, Cross Creek and also the Eagle River. Our preference right now is to have the Cross Creek diversion be the primary diversion for the reservoir. We can get most of the water we need. But there are limitations on Cross Creek. I mean, it's cheaper to construct and cheaper to operate because of the gravity flow. But because that's located within the Holy Cross Wilderness area, there are limits on construction techniques and modifications to the stream. So we are recommending also a backup of diverting water from the Eagle River also. We originally were talking about doing a gravity diversion further south and just have gravity flow around the old tailings pile to the base of the Southwest Dam by the saddle, and then but with some design iterations, we had to raise the dam height and the water surface to keep the 1,200 acre-feet goal for this. So that means we would have to have a pump station. And so we're thinking, well, if we're gonna have a pump station, we might as well just pump it all from the Eagle River. So we'll have a closer diversion directly from the Eagle River and pump it right into the dam. So that'll lower the impact to the area because it'll be much shorter. We're looking at more like a 1,200 feet pipeline versus a 3,000-foot ditch. And also that gravity diversion was going to wetlands, and there was going to be some more wildlife and impacts that would impact the permitting process and potentially drag it out. So right now our preference is leaning on doing the Eagle River pump station as the backup of the reservoir. The one thing to keep in mind, another limitation with Cross Creek is the Holy Cross area of wilderness and limits on how much disturbance we can do. When we have low flows in Cross Creek, we're going to be limited on how much water we can actually get out of there. So we're really limiting on the very high flows during the spring runoff in late May and June. So when we have the flow, when the flow in Cross Creek goes below 170 CFS, we'll have a lower ability to draw water gravity into the reservoir. So
I want to add
yeah.
just some context on that point. When we were talking with you guys several years ago about the reservoir construction, I know there was some concern about impacts to some of the Minturn water rights on Cross Creek. Essentially, what Justin is saying is at a certain flow level, we can't actually get water into the Bolt Stitch intake, and so there would be no injury to Minturn's water rights because we simply can't divert water through once flows get lower. So it's practically physically impossible for us to injure you guys with a gravity diversion at that.
So the reservoirs are operations. We intend to fill it during the spring runoff, and then we'll release the water as required by downstream calls, whether the Shoshone Cameo calls farther downstream of the Colorado River or in the Eagle River where we hit the in-stream flow rate. So it'll be filled, at the end of the high season, so probably June, July, but then it'll be slowly drawn down as we have demands in August, September, October, November. A lot of that depends on the season and also how we're going to operate it, since we have other reservoirs, reservoir and Green Mountain. So we've got to balance who has a call, what our demands are, whether it's outside of the Eagle River or inside the Eagle River. So it's going to be complex on how we operate it. But that's the general scenario. That'll be full in the early summer, and then it'll slowly be drained as we need it fall or late summer and in the fall. On the federal permitting, it's pretty extensive. The Bolt Stitch and the head gate is on Forest Service property and with special use permit from the Forest Service. And also we'll have to go through what's called a minimum requirements analysis framework. And with the Forest Service, we'll have to partner with them to figure out the design that minimizes the disturbance, it blends with the environment, that can be constructed with minimal preferably hand techniques or horses or that type of things. We're not allowed to bring large equipment into the area to make those modifications. But that'll be an iterative collaborative approach for the Forest Service to come up with that design. And then we also have to deal with the National Environmental Policy Act. They'll look at the wetlands, the wildlife, endangered species, and water quality impacts. We expect the Forest Service to be the lead agency at this time based on a meeting we had with them in the summer. But in reality, this is a lot of permitting. Expected at least 2-year minimum to go through this process. And just as a note, we are aware in the IGA with the town of Minden, we will have to submit documents to the town for review, I think a 30-day review period before we actually submit them to the federal government for formal approval. And as you mentioned before, we do have to deal with the county permits because the bolt stitch and the head gate is in an unincorporated Eagle County. And then, of course, we have to deal with the town of Minturns 1041 regulations that's addressed in the IGA that we signed previously. We have numerous construction permits. Once all that is done, that's more right before we start construction. Whether it's with CDOT, with the county, the town of Minturn, or the CDPHE, stormwater permits, groundwater, air quality permits. And then also we have the old tailings pile. We're gonna have a significant spoils from this reservoir site. And so we need a place to deposit them, and we've negotiated obviously with the old tailings pile to cover that so then it can be usable. But that will kick in the EPA and CDPHE rules and oversight of that capping of the old tailings pile. In summary, for us, we are looking at as many funding opportunities. I have a cost estimate at this time. We'll get one in February and we'll be available in March for everybody, but it's going to be a lot of money, very significant, and will have an impact. So we're looking at any way we can to mitigate costs and reduce the burden to our ratepayers. So right now, we've already gotten grants from the CWCB to help with design. The federal government has a small storage program of up to $100 million, $30 million per project. So we're working through that. They have certain requirements that we have to go through before we can even apply for that funding. And then also Colorado River District has been supportive of this project. So they're contributing for what we have to apply for that funding. But so that's just the beginning, but we're going to continue to look for whatever funding we can have to mitigate the burden to our ratepayers. So that's where we're at. But if you have any questions, we're more answer. We should have the next design in March, and then we'll start doing more outreach after that also. So
Thank you, Justin. Lynn?
Do you have any estimate about how long it will take you to actually fill the reservoir? Can you do it in one spring or?
yes. If it's a wet to above average wet year, yes, we can do it. Spring.
And if it's not, then it'd be obviously in over 2 years.
Yeah, or 1.5. It just depends, if we have water this year, maybe we could top it off. It all just depends on what the previous year and what the water level is. But if it was bone dry, and it's a wet to above, normal to above average year, we.
Thank you.
Ryan? Okay, Gusty?
I don't have anything. Thanks. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Just two questions. The first one, do you, I know that the district has a agreement with Aurora not opposing Whitney. Does that flow both ways? Do you expect any opposers to this reservoir?
For that one to Jason.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, no legal questions. I declined to answer.
I can answer that without it. I think venturing into legal territory. Right now we're working through the water court decrees. We have the augmentation plan for the reservoir and then the augmentation plan for the use of that Eagle Park water in the Minturn system and on the Battle North property. And I guess we have received opposition on those from the Homestake partners, but we're working through those and resolving those issues, and we've narrowed most of those. It's really just about the substance of the decrees.
Okay.
And how we're going to deal with accounting and other engineering and legal questions. And so I think we're very close to getting them to stipulate out of the case.
Okay.
And so hopefully those decrees, I think will be finalized within the next year. Working through that process.
I've seen it. Yeah, seen
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff. And then,
I'm not sure. I mean, once we've done that, I think that would address really any of their concerns as far as how it might impact their water rates in the Upper Eagle River watershed.
okay. And then, with the placement of the dirt on the CTP, OTP, on the OTP, Battle Mountain will be supervising that, and the EPA will be supervising that.
They're just gonna sign the contract for it as the landowner. And to do that, we're paying for it basically.
Yeah,
And so, and it'll all have to be approved by CDPHE and by the EPA. There's the restrictive covenants on the property. As it being part of the Superfund site, we have to be basically released from those to be able to do all that. So they'll have to approve those plans, but obviously they would like to see that happen because it furthers the remediation of the property.
well, I guess,
And
if there was,
I expect, I know, given your settlement agreement with
yeah,
Battle North, if it gets to that, when it gets to that point, and if that goes through, we'll run those grading plans by you guys. And work through those in a way that that makes it work for the town.
yeah, I know that laying dirt a certain way could allow for future building on a EPA site or a Superfund site or
Yeah.
whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that we were not just dumping it there, but
Yeah,
not
I'm
dumping
assuming
it
if
with-
it's gonna be used for recreation or something like that,
yeah, who knows?
we'd wanna work with you on what that looks like.
Okay,
Details.
thank you. No, that was my two.
And kind of on the same subject, the soils, I see you've done some testing already. Does that brought up any concerns about the quantity of soils, the quality soils available to use?
No, I think the soils are adequate for remediation.
Okay, okay.
No fatal flaws or
No
anything
fatal
like
flaws.
that at this
Okay.
point. It's just there are issues we're gonna have to mitigate, there are some voids in some of the bedrock that we're gonna have to deal with so that the reservoir doesn't leak. Through that can be accomplished by grouting or by covering it up with the liner. Those are the kinds of things that we're identifying at this phase, and then we'll work through those details as we advance our design, but no fatal flaws.
Okay, I have nothing, anything from staff that I didn't cover. Okay.
I did
you-
have one more question.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm dying to know. What's the BLM site that you'd be pulling clay soils from nearby?
So it's over by the landfill in
Okay.
Wolcott?
Oh,
It's
when you say nearby, you mean in Eagle County?
Yes,
Okay.
because we're not
I was
importing.
trying to
Yeah.
rack my brain.
Well, a lot of clay material would have to come, a lot of times it comes from Wyoming. So when
Okay,
we say
out there that the weathering of the shale leads to these clay deposits. And we actually own 25 acres right next to the landfill that is where our biosolids from our wastewater treatment operations are stored. And that site can yield most of the clay that we need. That we would go to mine off of to get the rest, and it's the same permitting process, whether we own the land or not. So we'll just incorporate that into our permit plan.
okay. Thank you.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, questions from anybody here? Jay, is there anybody on Zoom that has a question on this?
I know we are good to go.
Okay. Kristen,
all right, thank you.
thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in. Okay. Now we're going into our business items. The first item being ordinance number 20, series 2023, second reading. An ordinance creating the supplemental appropriation to the 2023 Town of Minturn budget. Jay, you got anything to say?
Yeah, hold on just a second. We're still sharing the screen.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Ordinance 20 is the ordinance for supplemental appropriation. You'll notice there's a few red lines in the attachment. As I stated at the last meeting, this now includes November, and I kind of estimate a little bit for December as well. So we should be pretty accurate. The ordinance takes into account only those items that are anticipated to exceed the line item, whether it's revenue or expense. It doesn't de-appropriate money or unappropriate money. The supplemental appropriation excuse me, the packet contains the red line version. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Lynn, any questions for you?
So, we're requiring a supplemental appropriation, but the extra, I have trouble understanding. It seems like the extra income equals or exceeds, except for a few $1,000s in the enterprise fund, the extra expenses. And is that just because the source of the extra income is this what we're voting on right now for a supplemental appropriation?
I believe the answer is it's entirely coincidental. What I do is I look at each line item, and if the revenue is in the negative, I mean, meaning it's exceeded its budget, then I supplementally appropriate that. If it goes under budget, I don't do anything with that. And the same goes for the expenses. It's the revenues are increasing because of their own standalone issues, same as the expenses. Did that answer?
No, I'm still confused.
So, Lynn, it's with the supplemental budget, certain line items of the 2023 budget may have been overspent or we didn't use enough. So what the supplemental does is fill in the gaps of either too much money on the budget line item or too little money. And this is funds being transferred for, I don't know if transfer is the right way, but anyways, moved into those budget line items to make sure the budget stands accurate.
Essentially, if we have revenue or that is additional supplemental, if we don't supplementally appropriate during the year, we can't use that money to, and so we'll exceed our budget for expenses.
So, and again, I'm just confused. Maybe I looked at the wrong place, but I looked at the last budget, and it looked like, for instance, in the general fund, we had additional expenses in engineering and for dues and fees of approximately $224,000. But we also had extra income of $309,000. Am I looking at the wrong budget or something?
Hold on just a second. Okay, so, excuse me, I got the wrong one up. Apologize. So, for example, the town hall rent, in this case, I had budgeted $1,500 to begin with, and it exceeded the budget by $500. So I made that $2,000. In the expense side, the supplies for the public works looks like to be about $500 over budget. So, and it was originally budgeted at 5,000, so now it's going to be 55. This is just literally going right down through each line item and seeing how it's going to compare to what was approved for the 23 budget.
And what is the amount of the supplemental appropriation required for the general fund?
Supplemental appropriation will be the $309,472.
Oh, okay. So that was my question. So that's why that's what you're suggesting.
Okay, so to carry that through,
That answers my question, because that's the number being requested. That's not additional income from somewhere.
correct.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn. Brian, do you have anything? Gusty?
Nope.
Kate? And I don't either. Okay, so at this point, I'll open it up for public hearing. Anybody out there, Jay?
There's one guest attendee with their hand is not raised. I'm going slowly in case they want to raise their hand. No fish on the line.
I'll close public hearing. That,
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I have to read the whole thing. To approve ordinance 20, series 2023. An ordinance amending the 2023 budget is set forth in the following Exhibit A to appropriate additional general fund revenues in the amount of 309,472. And the rest of what's in the packet. Will that work?
yes. Okay.
I'll second that.
Lazy.
Lazy. Nobody wants to hear me.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Terry, second by Kate. Roll call, please.
Lynn, here.
Brian, I. Dusty, I.
Kate, I. Terry, I.
Earl, I.
Tom, I.
Thank you. Right. Next, we have ordinance number 21, series 2023, second reading, an ordinance setting the 2024 general property tax mill levy for the town of Minturn. And no changes from first reading.
There really are no changes, correct? And I do apologize. I'm not bored and holding my head up. I have to hold my glasses up so I can see out the bifocal. I would like to point out this mill levy approval is basically what we went through the election of HH with and the special session that the state legislature did. The state has allowed a little bit longer, by a week or two, a couple weeks, to get all the information in place. A good example is our county assessor has to go back to the software company and get some code written because of the way the new law reads. They couldn't produce the numbers. I highly recommend that we approve the mill levy as it stands at 17.934. That's something that we are guaranteed that we can assess, but we don't know at this point exactly what the assessed value will be that we assess that mill levy against. I can go into some detail or some questions if you have any, but I have to admit this is one of the more convoluted things I've seen our state legislature do.
Any question from the board?
I have one.
Yes, Lance?
I missed the earlier reading of this ordinance because I was stuck in Rome with COVID. But I know the governor has encouraged local governments to re-examine their mill levy in light of the very sharp increase in property taxes, property assessments throughout the state. And I don't know the amount on average that property tax values increased this year, but I thought it was around 85%. And I saw the figure 40% somewhere, and I'm assuming that was for the entire state. But I think property values increased more dramatically in Minturn and in the Colorado mountain town, other Colorado mountain towns than anywhere. And even though only a small percentage I don't know exactly what it is, 2 point something, 2.5% of the mill levy goes to the town of Minturn. I do think we have a responsibility to the residents to seriously consider reducing our mill levy. I know property values go up and down, and it seems to me that were they to go down, we could certainly increase the property, the mill rate at a future date. But unless I saw a specific dollars that indicated that the town of Minturn needed all of this extra money, I'm inclined to oppose leaving the mill levy the same as in prior years. I think we need greater justification to require Minturn homeowners to pay so much more money in taxes.
We do have a pretty significant backlog of projects that we do need to address at some point. The 80%, I apologize, I've not heard that number. Our number is going up approximately 45 to 50%. It's probably going to be less than that when we get the final assessed value. In dollar values, that's going to take it from about 570,000 for 2023 up to about 850 currently in 24, which comes out about 45. My head is going straight. Without, I mean, the way that the legislature has already affected us, home values, there's an exemption amount, and they've raised that from $15,000 to $55,000. There's an additional amount for senior citizens over 65. I believe there's an additional credit for additional exemption for low income. And then they've also changed the assessed percentage from 6.765% for residential property, what I'm only speaking of, down to 6.7%. This is very, very similar to what they had agreed to do with HH, which failed. And then they came back in the legislature and did the same thing. And there was a lot of discussion about it at that level. I do not know of anybody, municipality, special district, fire district, ambulance district, any of those that are actually going to do the temporary reduction locally. And I have not heard, I really have not heard of any that's doing it otherwise. And part of the reason is that we don't have solid numbers yet. And we still are required to get our tax notices out, this county is, without knowing all of the I's dotted.
May I address that?
Sorry.
May I address Jay's remarks?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't know of any change in the senior citizens exemption. There is a $55,000 deduction that is available to homeowners. But it's still a substantial windfall. And I'm not suggesting that we drastically reduce it. I'm just saying that we should think about a small reduction. And even on, I think the most conservative analysis, 40% increase in property values. I doubt that it's less than that. I know in my own case, the my property values of my home increased 85%. And when I was considering an appeal and looked at I looked into how the change in valuation of numerous properties, single homes within the town of Minturn, I was shocked at how high they were. And I do know that other governmental entities are looking into this. I read that Eagle County, for example, is thinking about lowering their assessment. Colorado Mountain College has lowered their assessment, I believe. And I think other towns and special districts throughout the state are looking into this.
Okay,
So
Brian?
one of the we talked a lot about this.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that I was okay with doing kind of a temporary covering the town manager staff time and doing basically it's $150,000 at the water expense would be, and then taking that through the general fund in order to hold our water rates steady, was because I think we should hold the mill levy. So that's kind of like, instead of decreasing what we're taking, what we're doing is, you know, like our kind of gesture of cutting costs for the community is trying to like take a temporary hit on our and loss on our water enterprise fund. And that's how I see it. So instead of lowering this, and then I did have a question. So say we pass this and then something major changes through the legislature or whatever, something happens. What are our options in the future to change this? Because, you know, we can make informed decisions from there. Like what are our options at that point?
The options are pretty limited. We don't know the number that they're going to use for the assessment, so we don't know what the impact is going to be. I did go through and just kind of played with it based on 23 numbers, and 1 mil is going to take, it's about a $50 or $60 change or $40 change in the overall tax. It's not a market amount. The state has discussed backfilling certain categories of mill levies, like school districts, which is why CMC is looking at doing it, because they can be backfilled. We will not be in that. I don't know any municipality that will be in that status of backfill. You had to be less than 10% increase, and I'm assuming those are on Front Range and Eastern Plains.
I'm so sorry, but Brian, was your question answered? I mean, I felt like you asked what options do we have down the road should, you know, significant changes occur at the legislation. Are you asking, Jay, things like, can we reduce our mills and then bring them back up to the original rate without going to an election? Like,
Or vice versa? And it sounds like the answer is,
yeah, I just want to make sure your question was answered.
so if we bring it down, we can't bring it back up for the next year. And if we leave it as it is, we can't decrease it at any point.
I look to Jay because I believe that HH might give us a little way on that, but Jay, I'll look for you.
There was another issue that passed the legislature, not an election. I want to say it's 1203, Senate Bill 1203. I can't for sure remember. And that allowed us, if we wanted to do a temporary mill levy reduction, we've always been able to do it. In fact, we actually did it. I believe in 98, we did it one time. And we can do that. We can reduce it for 1 year and it'll go back up the next year to the current 17.934. The issue with that is that once it gets passed for 24, unless somebody like the legislature does something, I don't see how we could do it, because the tax notices will be set out. The banks and mortgage companies will be looking for that tax to be paid out of the mortgage payments. So, I mean, this is the whole thing. If they would have done this back in May, we would have had enough time to make educated decisions. Instead, we're there are so many unknowns that we're kind of stuck in the middle. That said, we might, at this point, we can't do it in 24, but we could do a temporary mill levy in 25 or 6, or, and it temporary means we go from, as an example, 17.934 to 17 mills. The next year, we would float right back up to 17.934 without penalties or anything, or elections.
Dusty?
I agree with Lynn. I think 40%'s a little low because I know mine was 90 and I also sent in the card back and got a thank you card back from them that wasn't going to change. I'd have a problem if we raise our water rates and do this. I just think we're double hitting the residents. That's my feeling on it. That's all I got.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sympathetic to the cost increases, but it's not like costs anywhere have gone down. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to pay more than they have to, but we also have to fund our town. Those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to reduce it right now, not knowing, and it makes up over 30% of our general fund revenues.
It's a tight budget. I am for relief, doing, like Brian, I'd like to see us have a holiday on increasing water fees for 1 year. And that helps, I think that goes further to helping people's pocketbooks than this would be, because if we were to consider a mill levy reduction, we have to redo the whole budget, the general fund budget, because and there's going to be a lot of cuts. We have to cut out a lot of programs if we're going to lose this money. So, and it's pretty late in the game to be doing this. Working overtime for the next 2 weeks, just so we don't break the law, unless they haven't pushed back anything as far as when the numbers are due, have they?
Jay, have they extended the deadline date for submitting to the county?
I got a letter on November 29th that that was from the county assessor that said the effects of the legislature 23B, Senate Bill 23B-001 moved the final certification from December 10th to January 3rd, which is basically the 1st of January. And then we've got about a week thereafter to start getting our mill levy into them and, everything else. So we're running out of time. And I heard 2 things. The first one is, I do understand that, the holiday, if you will, for water rates, we're not looking at an increase for our base rate and water use rates. I'm recommending not changing the mill levy simply because we don't know what the assessed value is. Just because your property went up 80% does not mean that your property tax will go up 80% because of the math involved in calculating the assessed value.
All right, can I just clarify? Last meeting, we talked about water rates and raising and the 12% that was projected. And this council took a vote of raising or not. What was that vote?
It was a tie.
That's what I thought. So we don't have a definitive no or yes on raising water rates at this time.
That's correct. And you're not to that ordinance yet. So you all will be having that.
Right. I know just several council members have alluded to the fact that we decided not, and that wasn't the case at all. That's what I thought.
No, that has.
Okay. We did not decide, it was
Right.
split evenly.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify that because it sounds like that's.
But I think while it'd be nice to be able to afford doing a mill levy adjustment. The impact would be minimal for our citizens, and the impact on the town would be a lot worse. We're not a big town. We don't have a whole lot of money. And for us to get done what we need to get done in the coming year, we need the property tax to be left alone. That's my opinion. Any further comments?
I would just say that I think it's reasonable to anticipate that we're going to get significantly more from the real estate transfer tax next year because of the Battle North development, if for no other reason. Not Battle North, I'm sorry, Minturn North. I just would like to see numbers that actually show that we needed all of this money for next year. And I understand what extra money we're getting is a moving target, but it sounds from what I've read that it'll be at least extra $250,000 to $300,000 using the lowest possible numbers of extra revenue. I'm sure the town can use it, but I'm not sure that's the standard that should be applied.
Budgeting for future revenues needs to be a conservative procedure. And some of these revenues that I believe you're talking about are you talking about Minturn North? Those revenues are pretty much budgeted into the 2024 budget, as they come in. So they're already accounted for, and those funds are generally used for specific reasons, areas of the budget. So once again, I just don't feel it's a good thing to count count the money when we don't have it yet.
I think we should leave the mill levy as it is. I agree with Earl. I think we have financial issues that the town needs to take seriously, and I don't know if we should be giving money back at this point. We have big financial problems. And on Minturn North, you understand they're going to sell the land and then develop the house, so they're not selling a $2 million house. They're selling a $400,000 piece of land. So it's not going to be as big a windfall in the tax revenues on the transfer tax.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
With that, I think we need to go ahead and go to the public. And so at this point, I'll go ahead and open it for public hearing. Anybody here have anything on this item? Go ahead, Kelly.
Kelly Toon, 531 Main Street. I do realize the town of Minturn, it's a small percentage of the tax to mill.
No, it's not. It's not something. It's 24.6% of your property tax goes to the town.
Quarter of it.
Or two points of the mill levy, of the total mill levy, was it?
Quarter of what tax you pay, a quarter of it goes back to the
Quarter
town.
of it. Is there any way to set rules that it can't change by a certain percentage? I mean, it's this whole thing that was created by other people seems just kind of insane, and but you guys have to make decisions. But I just know, I just really feel for the older people, the under income people of this town, and it seems like we're so close to next year and no one knows what's going on, which kind of blows my mind, and how it's going to affect people till a couple months from now. But is there any way to kind of just say it can't go up 40% and Or, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that we can do for that and how much. Okay, one question, is the county doing anything about it on their level?
Everybody is waiting to hear what the actual state, what the state is actually doing. They're waiting to finish up what they're doing because they didn't have a plan B when HH got voted down. The governor has, there's been stuff in the press, about what they're doing and how much. It's not 55,000 for all. It's a matter of each property and so forth is my understanding. But Polis has indicated that next year they will go to work and come up with a program for next year as well, as far as property tax reduction. The assessment happens every other year, and so the same property tax situation that we're dealing with right now will be there in 24. And at that point, the assessment for a new assessment will, like say, property taxes go up or down depending on those assessments. And I imagine this was probably a peak situation that we're dealing with. State's trying to do what they're doing. The county, all the local entities are waiting to see what that is. I haven't heard of anyone. CMC I didn't know about, but I know school district is not going to reduce anything. The county is going to look at it, but they're the only other entity that I've heard of that would consider it.
Okay.
To answer your question, Kelly, the town of Minturn doesn't have any control over property tax values.
Right.
Or the laws that set them.
But we have apparently control over
We have
the
control
mill
over
levy.
the mill levy
Right.
itself.
but it's
which right
almost
now is-
impossible to make a call on it when no one knows what everything's set at in the property values.
It's,
So we might get hit with a super big property tax this next year, and then we can adjust it the year following.
right, we're in a lot of gray
And just
area.
hope seniors and people on fixed incomes can pay it. So we don't lose them.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll utilize the credits that Jay talked about.
Correct.
Yep.
But still kind of scary, at least for a year for some people.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. Jay, anybody out there have a hand raised?
There's one person in the audience with no hand raised.
With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I can make a motion to approve ordinance 21, series 2023. Second reading, it says first reading on the,
Oh, excuse me.
20.
an ordinance levying general property taxes for the year 2024 to meet general operating costs of government for the town of Minturn, Colorado for the 2024 budget year.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Kate, motion by Terry, second by Kate. Roll call, please.
Lynn, nay.
Brian, I.
Dusty, nay.
Kid, I. Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
So ordinance 21 passes. Next item is ordinance 22, series 2023, second reading. An ordinance adopting the fee schedules for fiscal year 2024 for the town of Minturn. And
Some of the fees that we discussed changing, Little Beach Park, snow dump fees. And then I also broke out some of the other fees a little clearer. Other than that, it's basically what we've discussed in the past. You can see over on the far right-hand column, those are the changes based on what is on, I believe it's the next two columns in for 23 versus 24. And if there's nothing there, then it's not being changed.
Lynn, anything?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, Brian? Gusty?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Terry?
No.
And me, no. Okay. Oh, Tom, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Sorry, I haven't called on you. I just forget since you're not here.
have
We'll open
something
this
to
to
say
public
also.
hearing. Anyone?
There's one in the audience and nobody, they do not have their hand raised.
Close the public hearing. With that, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 23, series 2023. An ordinance appropriating revenues, appropriating expenditures, approving transfers, and adopting the town of Minturn budget for the period beginning on the first day of January 2024 and ending on the last day of December 2024.
Thank you, Gusty. Second?
I'll second it.
Are we on fees
Wait.
or budget?
This is 2022.
2022, we're on ordinance 22.
Yes.
So
Did I read the wrong one?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, page 51.
Sounded good.
did sound.
I'll read 220. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022 or series number 22, series 2023, an ordinance annually setting, amending, and approving the town fees as set forth in the following attachment to be included in Appendix A of the Minturn Code for the town of Minturn, Colorado, fees commencing January 1st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gusty, second by Lynn. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, I.
Gusty, aye.
Kate, I.
Terry, I.
Earl, I.
Tom, I.
Great. We have an ordinance. Next, ordinance 23, series 2023, second reading, an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2024 annual budget and recognizing the town of Minturn's 2024 revenues and expenses by fund. Got anything for us, Jay, on this?
No, there were no changes from the last reading.
Okay, no changes.
So when, I'm so sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Mhm.
When Jay indicates that there's no changes, we left everything as it was, since at the last council meeting, we had a tie vote for how to address the water rates. So it has been left as is for further council discussion.
Okay, so this is us,
And we have a full council this time.
Correct.
yes, we have a full council this time, so we won't have a tie, but this is an effort to, with considering the property tax as well, is to allow us to eat what would have been a little over 12% increase in the base rate of our water bills. So with that, we need to have this discussion again because we only had 6 people last time, and so it was a tie. So would like to open it up for discussion. Lynn, do you have any questions, comment? Lynn,
No, I don't have anything.
Brian?
So as is, this reflects the holding the water steady, which I think I 100% agree that we should be operating the enterprise fund as a sustainable business, but recognizing that there's some one-time, hopefully one-time, multi-year, short-term increases due to some I don't know, engineering and consulting and legal, and then also given the rapid increase in property taxes and lack of knowing what's going on there, that we might increase property taxes across the town. I think that we should do this one year thing and look at it as it's something we can control, as opposed to the mill levy, which really know if we drop it, what impact that has. We know exactly what impact holding the water rate steady for a year will do for our town residents. So I'm for keeping that.
Gusty?
I'm also for keeping it the same. Still not a firm believer in the 12.5% that we got proposed to us by the consultant hired on, because he didn't have all the facts, with adding on Minturn North, and also I'm kind of a little concerned, with the mill levy staying the same and then being told that it was like 40% increase. And if everybody else is like I am and it went up 90%, we should see an inflow of money, through the sales tax base. And I think with, doing 2, I think that's asking a lot on our residents. So I'm in favor of just leaving.
What's the process for moving money between the general and enterprise fund?
There's no money being moved.
So if we have an excess in the general fund, it does nothing for the enterprise fund?
That's correct.
Thank you.
How about the capital fund?
No. Like the enterprise fund is its own entity and it has to be a standalone.
So if there's extra money in the general fund at the end of next year,
We cannot put it into the enterprise fund.
can't do anything with it?
Not with the enterprise fund.
We
Sorry.
certainly can do
Yeah.
quite a bit with it. It just cannot go to supplement enterprise fund costs.
Be great to be sitting here at this time next year saying, wow, our general fund expenses were thought we can drop our mill levy for a year or do something else.
Or build sidewalks?
Exactly.
Yep.
And
Or
listen for
fix a roof
public
or-
feedback. or
There would be a
Yep.
bevy of options. I would come to you with a capital improvements list, which is long.
I guess maybe I do have a question. We talked about, or the consultant said 12%, but what about next year? What would the increase be? Are we expecting it to be less because maybe we're
his-
not hiring as much legal, or is it going to be a bigger jump next year? Or is it going to be
His
15?
future year projections were 3% in line with.
So 15 next year?
No, like it would be a 12% increase this year to attain financial solvency, and then years after that would be just a 3% increase in line with inflation.
Okay.
I will also provide the council with an update that the consultant providing the data, was, like Gussie said, somewhat new to looking at our system. So I have gone back and asked James Mann, who had traditionally done all of the work on our water rate analysis in the past. He was with UMB Financial, which is who represented the documents that you saw regarding the water rates. UMB Financial eliminated his position this last fall, which is why James Mann was not the one specifically doing that work. I am working now to bring James Mann on staff in a very limited part-time capacity so that he might be able to review our water rates, downtown development authority documents, some other metro district, analyses that we'll be having, through the Battle Mountain process to conduct that work. So I hope to have him on board in about the next month.
And Gusty, you were right on that. I think from other entities that had had some same problems. So we can do a supplemental budget. So if Jim Mann comes up with different numbers, we can reduce that. That expectation if council desires to not move forward with this.
So that's what's changed from last time we tried to discuss this to this time, is that if Jim Mann comes up with a different number, we can adjust this, or?
The council always has the ability to adjust the water rate numbers through any time of the year. Yes. So even though, you're setting them right now, if you should so choose, you can change it in January. You can change it in February. So
And then it would just reflect on the following.
that's correct. Yes.
And I just want to say that I'm not in favor of raising the water costs to residents unless absolutely necessary. And I think it's too bad that the statutes won't let us use general fund monies for the enterprise fund to help in that regard. But to the extent that there are discretionary items that can be allocated to either side and aren't, and where it's not clear but discretionary, I'm all in favor of allocating them to the general fund.
Okay, so,
We haven't heard from Tom.
just based on what you said, though, the 150,000, regardless of what Jim Mann says is coming, we've got that bill, correct?
So the I think it's about 145,000 that was estimated for the costs to cover an anticipated railroad lease, parcel lease. Those funds are anticipated to be available via Jay's analysis of the current economic forecasts as we see them today. I mean, just so you all know, all of the 2020 budget is one great big estimate. The whole thing from start to finish is a great big estimate based on, thankfully, Jay's extensive knowledge in doing municipal budgeting, combined with, state forecasting, combined with, current sales tax, estimates and mortgage rates and inflation and all of those other things. Jay uses all of those things to make assumptions on how much sales tax will bring in, how much property tax will bring in, how much of the fees will bring in through real estate transfer tax and the such. So all of that combined gives us our town's total estimated revenue for what we think that we will bring in 2024. And then we base estimates on how much we will spend off of the estimated revenue. And so that's when we go and we take the strategic plan and try to align that, but I don't want to candy coat it and make it look like we have some amazing crystal ball. Like it's an estimate. And so and that's why you see these, ordinances with all of these appropriations, because we were $500 off here, we were $4,000 off here, and the such. So I just want to be really honest about how this budget comes together. And we're really lucky. Jay has been doing this for over 25 years. And he takes a very conservative approach to estimated revenues coming in.
Tom, you got anything?
Yeah, I think it's irresponsible to not have some sort of increase given the general inflation in the economy and the situation of our water system. So I think, maybe it's not 12%, maybe it's 6%, but we've got to have some increase. And that's the way I feel. I think we're in the trouble that we're in because over the years we haven't adjusted the rates to what they need to be. And, you're passing the buck because a neighbor's giving you a hard time, or your fellow citizens, they don't want to pay. I get they don't want to pay, but they also don't want to have any water. We got to have water. So I think you have to have some increase. So I'd like to see us split it at 6 or something like that, but I'm not going to vote for no increase. I think that's passing the buck.
Okay, thank you, Tom. With that, I'll open it up for public hearing. Any comments from people here? Jay, hands raised?
There's one in the audience, no hands raised.
Okay. Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion. Oh, wait, I think this is a direction thing right now. The motion's on the entire ordinance, but I need to understand the direction of the majority of council. And so I'd like to just get a thumbs up, thumb down, and a yes or a no. Wait.
Well, I heard 3 options presented. One is no increase, one is full increase to 12%, and one is half increase, 6%.
Okay.
So do you want to?
Well, let's have that discussion. Then I don't know if that changes anybody's mind, but if that's okay, we'll have 3 options. One is leave it as it is with a 12.5% increase. 2 is split the difference, do 6%, and the other option is to supplement, is to have no increase for this year. So if I could get
Would you start with the 12?
yeah, might as well. So who's in favor of the 12%? Do we have? Okay, so we have 1, 2.
Vote for more than one.
This is for the 12%.
Yeah, you can put more than one because I fully planned that. Be a part of the vote. I'm already saying that.
Okay, and then, okay, who's, for the,
Tom raise his hand. Where's Tom?
Tom, did you
I'm for the 6%.
okay,
And it's not 6, I go to the 12, but
okay. So, 6%, who's in favor of 6%?
I'm in favor of 6%. If not 6%, go to none.
I'm the same, 6 or none.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and, who's in favor of nothing, no, 0%? Okay. All right. So looks like the 6% item works.
So if, when a motion is made, that amendment can be included in the motion, that would help give us the direction for moving forward with the council decision.
Now, is this gonna be 6% on all water
Base rate.
fees as far as like tap fees,
No,
the user fees? Okay, the
Just
tap
base
fees are set. That was already
We just
set
did that
before.
one.
This only was dealing with the rate, the standard rate, and then the volumetric
that's correct.
gallons.
Standard, base rate, and volumetric.
Okay,
Well, I can make a motion to approve ordinance 23, series 2023, an ordinance appropriating revenues, appropriating expenditures, approving transfers, and adopting the town of Minturn budget for the period beginning on the first day of January 24, ending on the last day of December 24, with the stipulation of water rates being raised 6%.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Terry and a second by Kate. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, nay.
yes, DI.
Kate, aye.
Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
Okay. Motion passes.
Can I confirm, Lynn and Brian, you were both nays, is that correct? No? Or were you for it?
Lynn voted aye.
I apologize, I didn't hear that very clearly. Thank you.
Okay, next we have ordinance 24, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance increasing the council pay. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit, just for explanation. We've, usually it's, not a big deal, but this council has been working very hard, for the last few years, and, it's very time consuming. If I would take a wild guess that if we had to average how many pages were in our packets, I would say we probably average around 50 to 100. But
I'm 600.
600.
sometimes it's 600 and sometimes it's the lowest I've seen is about 65 pages. But anyway, it takes a lot of our time to make sure that we've learned all we need to learn to make the decisions that we have to make. And there was a recent spat where Vail and Avon both raised their council pay levels, way above ours, but that's appropriate. We're don't have the funds that they do. And really the amount of money involved is not really something that's going to hurt the budget. Jay, if you think I've said that wrong and you have and you think it does hurt the budget, let me know. So what this would do is basically double our pay. So for council, it would be 200 to 400, and for mayor would be 400 to 800. And it only, it is only increased to those that are up for election in April. And whoever is elected in April, those would get the increase. And then next time around, 2 years from then, whoever hasn't didn't get the increase this year and they're following through, and the following time around, they would get the increase at that point. So I didn't want council to take the hit because I thought this was appropriate. The other thing is what has stuck with me was Brian's mentioning that he felt that a lot of parents, it would be very helpful for people who might want to run for council to be able to have at least enough money to where they can cover daycare for loss of time and so forth. So, and that kind of hit home too, because it is daycare didn't cost nearly as much when I was raising my kids than it does now. And I am hoping to get a younger generation running for council. So I'm hoping that will perhaps help that part of the situation. Is there any discussion from anybody else from council on this? Gussie?
Just thinking of P and Z, how long has it been since they've been sitting at $50 a meeting?
Jay?
I
Um,
didn't know if something ought to look at down the road for them, or
Jay?
the planning commission is paid $75 per meeting. And it was increased. The council has not increased since about 2008. The planning commission was last increased from about $16 to $75 a meeting. And I believe it was about 2017 or 18.
okay, so it's been sooner than, I was just kind of curious if they were on the same schedule as council.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns for the board? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Excuse me, there's a public hearing.
Oh, sorry, public hearing. I almost got through this, damn it. Open public hearing. Any comments in town? Any comments on Zoom land? Did you have something, Kelly? Okay, thank you. Nobody out there?
No,
Jay?
nobody with their hand raised.
Okay, close public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 24, series 23. An ordinance amending chapter 2 of the Minter Municipal Code by repealing and reenacting section 230, establishing and providing compensation for the town council and the mayor of the town of Minter in Colorado.
Second.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Terry and a second by Brian. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, I.
Dusty, I.
Terry, I.
Earl, I.
Tom, I.
Okay. That one's done. Next is ordinance 26, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance amending the fees for midterm municipal court. Who wants to take this one?
Excuse me, we're on ordinance 25 now.
Did I skip 25?
Term rentals.
Oh, that's right, I did. Just trying to speed things up. Ordinance 25, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance amending the short.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you may recall, in the ordinance that you passed approving the fees, you approved a fee for the short-term rentals to be assessed at $300 per bedroom or sleeping area. To allow that to occur, we needed to make an adjustment to the code. So what you see here in the ordinance identifies that the fee is now a per bedroom fee rather than a flat fee. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it really is that simple.
Any questions?
I wasn't here for when we created the law in the first place.
Ordinance number 4, 2017.
Yeah, was it 2017?
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't here. I know we discussed some changes to the 100 block at some point. But a lot of other mountain towns are moving toward a model where short-term rentals within somebody's house, and I don't know how exactly you define that, where renting out like a bedroom, as opposed to a whole house situation where it's kind of, it is like somebody bought the house and is renting the whole thing and flipping the whole thing. And they're starting to treat that different in terms of, you know, because one of them can contribute to housing affordability in mountain towns. You know, a lot of people are building houses that with the idea where there's a room they can kind of lock off and rent. Did we, at that point, was there any discussion or is there any kind of consideration coming up with these fees to, because in my view, we should encourage those. I mean, I think that's fine. Like that's an easy way for us to make housing more affordable here, is if someone can take a bump off their mortgage and rent out a room here and there, versus what I see as a not so good impact in mountain towns, especially living in Eastvale for a while, where there's no such thing as neighbors. You're in a building with 20 short-term rentals and yourself. Was that taken into consideration at all when we set these fees, or when we're looking at the original ordinance, or what we're at now with the 300 per room?
I think this addresses that. I mean, for somebody who wants to rent a room in their house, it's $300 a year for them to do that. So if they're gonna go at the going rate and they're gonna make 1,000 a month on a room, or for a long-term renter, or sorry, for a short-term renter, they're gonna make 500 a night or whatever it looks like. It's a short-term rental. So they can make that off of one night easily. And I mean, I was looking at the bunkhouse their rates are up there as well. I mean, like they're almost comparable. So I don't know. I think that addresses a 5-bedroom house is going to be 1,500 a year. So it's really not that huge of it's still not a big business license or STR license, I think. Is that?
Yeah, and the one room is $300, so that's what the rate is now for everything. The idea was, I'm sorry, what were you done?
Oh, no, I just was wondering if you were thinking it should be more.
No, if anything, I was thinking it should either be lower, or we should look at at some point, our short-term rental ordinance again and maybe break those out, or.
Well, yeah, what the reason we were, staff proposed this is because the impacts on both council time and dissatisfied neighbors is greater the larger the rental is. So if you have a 5-bedroom house that's renting out, well, that's 5 couples coming up from Denver and 5 cars to park and that kind of thing. And so there's impacts there, and the council time that has to be spent on this as well is increased as well. So this is an idea of just, there's a rational nexus there.
If we want to, I mean, we have a 10% of our housing market like set, and we're using half of it.
Or 50.
SDRs.
Yeah, or 50. It was 50 or 10%.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if we want to address that maybe in the future, so that some of these newer houses coming online aren't all short-term rentals, because really, if it's a 5-bedroom, we're only getting 1,500 a year, correct? And we're not getting full-time residents.
Do you have to own your house for a certain amount of time?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, which I think has saved this town, whoever
Yeah.
wrote that.
That was important.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We can always look at that again.
Well, that's good background. Thanks. Okay.
Staff is dying to look at it again.
It's at the council discretion. And I will say, Brian, that when we were looking at the downtown design review guidelines, the council did pass, I thought, at the request of a local business owner, Larry came in and requested to have the 2-year ownership eliminated. Jay, correct me if I'm recalling this incorrectly, but I feel like the 2-year ownership for a short-term rental on the second floor in the downtown area was eliminated, so long as the commercial was maintained on the ground floor.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was right.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was to promote lodging in the downtown core.
Tom, got any comment?
No, I don't have any problem with the fee. And, it is a small amount. Maybe it's 1 booking form or something like that for a larger house. So that doesn't bother me. I think you have to realize, though, that when people are spending $1 million, $2 million a house, it's not very likely that they're going to make it employee housing, so it's a worst case scenario to have a second home just sitting there empty, vacant the whole time. I actually think we want to, given the cost of houses in Minturn, I think we want to encourage short-term rentals, not discourage them, because the alternative is it sits vacant. It's not like somebody who spends $2 million on a house is going to say, hey, I can't short-term rent it, so I'm a long-term rent it. They're going to say, no, it's just going to sit vacant. So I I think it's a mistake to come down too heavy on short-term rentals, but that's the business I'm in, but nobody's spending $1 million, $2 million for a short-term rental. That's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And it's not something that the council can correct or the county can correct or anything. That's economics. So I think the last thing we want is just vacant houses that don't get used except for a couple weeks a year. Like, for example, the Trout and Racket Club doesn't allow short-term rentals, and most of the year, it's a ghost town down there. You drive through there 90% of the time and there's no cars, nobody. To me, it's, real kind of almost morbid, but that's my take on it. So, but I don't have any problem with the rates going up, and I think that the people who are renting their houses can afford it.
Thank you, Tom. Any more comment from council?
I'll say that I think this new ordinance the changes are fair and a good balance. I don't think $300 is large enough that it would impoverish the person renting a room in his house for over a year's period of time. And I like the idea that the fee goes up with the number of bedrooms. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Any further comment? I'll open it for public hearing. Yes. If you just please, if you just come up and state your name and address in that way. Go ahead.
Hi, this is my first meeting here. And I just had a question with regards to the short. How are you defining that? And would that apply to like the inns and hotels as well? Or is it just individuals that are renting their houses?
So usually you give your name and address for the record.
Sorry, I'm Tierney Delude and I'm at the Eagle River Inn,
Pleasure.
145.
Well, nice to have you.
Welcome to town.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jay, do you want to answer that or do you want me to take that?
I think we can both do it if you want.
Go. Jay loves this stuff. We'll let him go take it.
The answer is yes, it applies to hotels and short-term rentals. The short-term rental is defined by under 30 days of occupancy in a single stay. And that's what gives you the tax. The lodge itself, like the Minturn Inn or the Eagle River Inn, they only pay a business license. They are not assessed a short-term rental fee of $300 because they don't need to be inspected every year. They tend not to grow bedrooms. Things like that. There's less impact on town, and normally the staff is able to handle that on a much easier basis. Further, a place like the Eagle River Inn or the Minturn Inn or the Hotel Minturn, those are assessed at a commercial rate for taxes, for property tax. So they pay it that way versus the $300 per room or something like that.
Great. that
Yes,
answers
just
it.
to be clear, this ordinance would not affect the Eagle River Inn.
Correct. Okay.
I have a question though about that, Jay, because I have friends that own an inn in Cedar Edge, and I know,
Funky place.
yeah, it is, and they use VRBO or one of those to rent their rooms, but they are a lodge. They're like basically a lodge, and they have a innkeeper on site. So how does that work? Because doesn't like the VRBO and I don't know, or Airbnb, whichever one, don't they automatically send the town to, okay.
So, I don't mean to interrupt if you're not complete.
No, it's fine. I think you get my gist.
Because she's here, let's use the Eagle River Inn as an example. That property is a commercial building. It's taxed at a commercial rate in property taxes. They still pay the 1.5% lodging sales tax in addition to the 4% sales tax, but they don't pay the $300 licensing fee per sleeping quarters. They would pay based on next year's rates, they would pay $75 for a business license itself, but that's it. If it is, as an example, Terry, your home and you short-term rent it, then yes, you would be assessed $300 per room. You are assessed at a residential property tax rate, and you would still be the 1.5% and the 4% lodging and sales tax.
I have a question, Jay. How would that apply to the building that used to be the International Trade Center?
I believe those are long-term. I'm not familiar with what they're renting there. I
They're
apologize.
renting long-term.
If they were to rent them short-term, how would it, which
In this
Um,
case, it would,
they be?
the International Trade Center is a commercial property. They're assessed at the commercial rate for property tax. They would still have the 1.5 and 4% taxes. And the commercial value assessment rate is significantly higher. It's about 3 to 4%, 3 to 4 times larger than the residential. By example, and I don't have it in front of me, so bear with me, but it's going to go to about 6.7% assessed value for residential property, and commercial properties at about 26%, 25%. So there's a big difference.
More questions? If there is none, I'll open the public hearing. Oh, you already did.
Already.
Closing the public hearing. Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 25, series 2023, and Town of Minturn, amending chapter 6 of the Minturn Municipal Code to amend the short-term rental license fees.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gusty, a second by Brian. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, I.
Gusty, aye.
Kate, I.
Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
Okay. Ordinance number 26, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance amending the fee Minturn Municipal Court.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this ordinance is geared to clean up some fees in the court that have been charged over the years. So as you all know, fees are approved through the fee schedule. The one that is not is court fees. Court fees are approved through the code itself. So with that, Cindy, when she was reviewing the court fees, came and and cross-checking those with the code, she came across the inconsistency that the court fees that are currently being charged and have been charged for quite some time are not in line with what it says in the code. So at some point in time, and we could not say what that is, we do not know, the fee got changed, but it was not adjusted in the code. And Cindy didn't know how to address that. And I said, Cindy, we're just transparent. So that's where we're at. And this is to come in and clean that up. So this is to make the fees that are being charged in court the same as the fees outlined in the code.
Good. Is it more or less?
It's the same as what's been charged, but prior it was $15. So this is now more.
Yeah, I bet.
I told Cindy I'm getting pretty good at coming to council with my errors or someone's errors.
Okay, any questions on this?
So it will change the fee from a $15 to $25 plus a 25% of the assessed fine.
Okay, hearing nothing, I'll open it for public hearing. Come on, Kelly, you're in court all the time, right? Just kidding, just kidding. Anybody out there, Jay?
Excuse me. No, there's one in the audience and nobody with their hand up.
Close public hearing. Motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 26, series 2023, an ordinance of the town of Minturn amending the chapter 2 of the municipal code to amend the municipal court costs.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion by Kate and a second by Lynn. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, excuse me, Brian, I.
Gusty, I.
Kate,
Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
Okay. Ordinance 27, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance amending the approval process for special event.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another ordinance to clean up the Minturn Municipal Code. I'm really fortunate that Cindy had the time to go and cross-check the code on several of these matters. So when the special event permit and licensing ordinance was approved back in the day, it identified a set fee amount. And as we just discussed, all fees are approved through the fee schedule except court costs. So this ordinance is taking out the fee identified in the code and moving that fee, as you will see in the double underlines, to be adopted in the Minturn fee schedule. So this will allow the council to adopt the special events permit fees on an annual basis, or as the council should choose, rather than needing an amendment to an ordinance to do so.
Smart.
We're doing a lot of cleanup tonight.
Good for us.
Any questions, concerns from council? Public hearing is open. No hands raised, Jay?
No, sir, there are not.
Close public hearing. You have a motion?
motion to approve ordinance number 27, series 2023, an ordinance of the town of Minturn amending chapter 6 special event permit application fee.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kate, second by Gusty. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Brian, I.
Gusty, I.
Kate,
Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
Ordinance 28, series 2023, first reading, an ordinance amending the approval process for contractor licensing fee and period.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the contractor's fee in permitting, when it was originally created, was set at a 3-year period. However, all of our other licensing is done on an annual basis. So this has caused a bit of confusion for contractors, and we finally just had a contractor come in. Why isn't this just? So Cindy was in strong agreement with this as she handles the contractor licensing. So she requested that we change the contractor licensing to go from a 3-year time period to annual. And Jay, I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head. What is the annual fee for contractors licensing now?
100.
100.
Yeah.
100. Okay. So it used to be 240 for the 3-year period, and now it'll be 100 annually. I will say we did just move business licensing fees to $75 from 120. We took them down. I do feel it's appropriate for a contractor's license to be slightly more business license. Say, in the experience that I've had in dealing with both, the contractor's licenses are more intensive throughout the year and require more staff time.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
Any questions? Okay. Open it up for public hearing. Jay?
Nope, there's no one in the audience with their hand up.
Oh, I have nothing to add here. It sounds sensible to me to make it an annual fee.
Okay. Close the public hearing. Okay, motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 28, series 2023, an ordinance of the town of Minturn amending chapter 6 municipal code to amend the
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Kate, second by Terry. Roll call.
Lynn, I.
Brian, I.
Just I.
Kate, I.
Terry, I.
Earl, aye.
Tom, I.
All right. So good. Okay, thank you, council. No discussion items?
No, sir, they were all pulled.
Future meeting agenda items. Does anyone have any proposed topics?
I will be adding to the December 20th council meeting, the Eagle County emergency, the proposed adoption of the Eagle County emergency operations plan, which includes the evacuation plan.
Okay. Boy, that's quite a project, isn't it?
It's now that some other things have fallen off, we're getting more traction. Yeah.
Well, the only thing left is a tough motion, and that is adjournment.
Actually, I'm
Oh, you
so sorry, but Jay had asked if he could speak up about the election.
certainly, Jay.
Sorry, I know you guys, it's been a long day. Earl, you brought it up earlier, and I just want to make sure that it's clear. We will be putting an ad in the newspaper in the next week or so, and it'll run multiple times, soliciting people to pull an application to be on the council. The seats that are available are the mayor's seat, and there are 3 council seats. I tried to do it by council, by seat versus person, makes it a little less personal. The first day that you can pick up a nomination petition is Tuesday, January 4th, and you have 20 days, which is actually it's the 24th of, which is a Monday of January, to get it back in. You need a complete application with 10 signatures. They're very hard to get. You do have to really work at it. I always tell people, if you bring in 10, you probably have 10 good ones, but if you don't, you have to go out and cure it, which takes the same amount of time as it did just to do it right the first time. So get 20 or 25. The election is April 5th, excuse me. And we will do a polling place election, which means we'll have down in the council room right there, we'll have the election. But of course, anybody can ask for a mail ballot, and I'll mail them out to them. They can come by and request one in person, and I will issue them one if they are available. There's a timeline for those too.
Hey, Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought our elections were the second Tuesday.
So they're the second Tuesday after the first Monday.
Oh, of course.
And
So wouldn't that be April 9th?
they'll
I
be,
just want to make sure we give the correct date to everybody because April 5th is a Friday.
excuse me. Okay, it is not, it is the, and I apologize then, I don't have my note with me. I apologize. It is the first Tuesday in the month because Monday is the first, I believe it's the second, then it may, Michelle. April 2nd, April 1st is a Monday. It is the first Tuesday after the first Monday. We have gotten that in and changed around, and we had an election a week and a half after everybody else in the state did. Lynn?
Yeah, I have a question. So if the, and I'm not up for re-election, but it's my understanding that if the candidate isn't opposed in the election, they're deemed elected and there is no actual election, but then the fee that is paid to them is half of what it would be otherwise. And it seems to me that going forward, we should resolve whether they truly are deemed elected, or we should insist that they go through the election process, even if they're unopposed. So that I think there are 3 of us who are in the position of not having been opposed, and therefore we're not eligible for 4 years for the increase that the other council members receive. And it seems like everyone should be treated the same.
You are, and that's a very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. A very good example is at the last election, we did not need to hold an election because we had an equal number of candidates for seats. They are deemed elected, Lynn. They're not appointed, they're deemed elected by state law. So therefore, they would be eligible for the increase.
Oh, I stand corrected then.
Well, can we make sure we're all talking about the same thing right now? Because Lynn, I think what I hear you asking is, do you have to wait another 2 years in order to get the raise, the council raise?
And or anyone else in my position.
Right. And I think Jay would say that, yes, you do, because you cannot vote on your own raise. You have to be elected into office in order to get the raise that was voted upon. So council is not able to vote for their own raises. You have to go through an election and then come in new to get the raise. So if you choose to run again in another 2 years, you would get the raise. Jay, am I explaining this correctly?
Oh, so it applies to everyone.
It applies to everyone as they are elected into office. So as an example, the 3 new folks in April are kind of lucky that they're coming in with the new raise. But the 3 of you who ran unopposed and were elected into office have another 2 years of term before you can potentially start to see the value in that raise, because you won't get it for another 2 years unless you run again.
It's understood.
Yep. Okay.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
And that's state law.
I understand now.
Okay. Anything else, Jay?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jay?
Just like to say once again, thanks Jay for all your work on the budget. Great.
Thank you. It's been a great day at sea.
It's been really
one
difficult
question
this
left.
year.
Okay.
It was possible, and you've done
Will we see a revised budget with the 6% rate increase in the enterprise fund?
Absolutely.
So yes.
Great. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Motion by Terry, second by Kate.
My favorite.
All in
motion.
favor?
I
Opposed?
got out of here by 7:30.
We are adjourned.
Off the record.
I don't know what to do with the rest of my life.